Well, hello everybody. This is part 2 of the JMRI operations menu tutorial. I hope you can learn something good from it. I'm going to go ahead now and open up the Panel Pro. So just double click on it. And just so you know why it's open, JMRI is a free download. So you just go to .org on the internet and you can download it for free. So it's there's no registering or anything like that. It's just just a download. It's a great tool for us to use as model railroaders. Like I say, the only thing I'm using out of it is the operations part because I'm going to be using it to generate my switch list and manifest, etc. So that's why I'm doing a tutorial on the operations section. All right. So as you can see, my screen is open now. Remember, because of one of the settings I did in lesson 1, my operations is now on my main menu. So I'm going to click on it. Settings is what we did in the first tutorial. Now we're going to do locations. So I have already put in 3 locations. So I'm going to go over one of those, the yard, the Alexandria yard, and explain what I did. So I'm hoping you see there's some things in there you can do with a yard. And then what we're going to be adding in this lesson is also a siding and a spur. So, okay. So, I'm just going to click on the edit button to edit Alexandria Yard. As you can see, I have the main location page up here and then all my tracks listed. So, the first thing you'll do is give it a name, tell it, is this location serviced by all your trains that are running? Now, you'll notice my boxes, the north box and the south box, are unchecked. You want to uncheck, and of course, if you have east and westbound trains, you'll also have the east and west showing, but I don't because I only have north and south. If you want the yard to only be handled by a local switcher, you want to uncheck both boxes. If I wanted it to be handled by the mainline train and spot cars and things like that, then I would have checked north and south. But no, I'm only going to have my local switcher handle the yard, break down the trains, build the trains, move them to various industries in the yard, things like that. So those 2 boxes are unchecked. These boxes these are the boxes you check, which will allow you to add all of these types of rolling stock to the yard. Okay, so I want to be able to say on which tracks in my yard can handle which types of rolling stock. So you notice I have listed here track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. I have also added a descriptive name to those tracks that, and let me just pull this down so you can see my face too. I've also added a name to those descriptive tracks where I need to have them. So you can see track 5 is also labeled as the caboose track because that is my caboose track. Track 6 is a scale track. And then I have track 9, 10, 11, etc. So now I am going to show you some different things in my yard that so you can understand why I did them. So first of all, I did not put my main lines. I have 2 main lines running into my yard. One's a northbound main line, one's southbound. I do not have those in here because they're not really yard tracks. So KCS had a practice of numbering those tracks at the even 100 levels. Most of their main line track was 500. Unless you had a double main line, then you'd see something like 500 and 600. So that is how I have my tracks numbered. I just started with my yard track 1, 2, 3, and you'll notice I put a 0 in front of the 1. So the zeros in front of the single digits will help you order the tracks correctly in the list. Because if you didn't do that, when you got down to 10, you'd have 1, 10, 11, 12, and then 2, 3, 4, etc. So my first track is 1. I put in the length, of course, and I'm just going to hit the edit button here. And whatever kind of cars it can accept, and it can accept everything. So that's where I'm going to put, that's what I'm going to put on 1. The only thing I don't want to put on 1, and I'm going to change this, is my my maintenance of way cars and my engines, because, and also my cabooses, because I don't want to store those on track 1. Okay, I don't, those cars aren't going to be stored on track 1 at all, so that's why I'm clearing them. That doesn't mean that they're not going to traverse that track and building up a train. It just means that they're not going to get stored on 1. Okay, so once you do any changes or add a track, you're going to come down here and click Save Yard Track. Same for 2. I'm going to go back and just make those changes real quick. Maintenance away stuff, caboose, save. And once you have a track in here, you're just going to hit the edit button to change things in it. That's all you're going to have to do. All right. And caboose, save. And so those things aren't going to be stored at all. All right. Now you get down to track 5, which is my caboose track. And notice when you go to edit it, the only thing is checked as caboose, because the only thing that's going to be stored on track 5 is my caboose. You also see, and we'll talk about this a little more in depth, the pickup car order, normal, first in, first out, or last in, first out. On my caboose track, it doesn't matter. I have these on through tracks. I always have it set to normal because you can access from either end. and the yard tracks are basically just storage tracks anyway, to classify trains, to build them, break them down, that kind of stuff. So on stub in tracks, where I serve as an industry, I want to do something like what I do on my railroad is first in, first out. So in other words, if I put a car on a stub in track, if other cars come in on a later train, that first one is going to be the first one out. Okay, so the one all the way at the end, and that gives a little bit of fun in switching and things like that. Make sure make sure that all of the cars stay in order on that one track. So if I have a car sitting at the end, if I bring another one in, then I'm going to have to move that first one to get it on the outside. So, yeah, and you'll see that as you switch, how that works. So, number 6 is my scale track. So as far as storage facility on track 6, most of it's taken up by switches or scales to get over to the other track. So I only have 261 feet of length for storage on that, not much. Then I've got 7, 8, 9, which you'll notice my order is first in, first out, and that's because they're stub in tracks. But what I really wanted to show you was track 10. Notice I have track 10 labeled as north and south, and I'll show you why. Let me turn the camera around to that end of the yard and zoom in a little bit if I can. All right, so this is track 10 over here. So track 10, like I said, I labeled it north and south. This is the north end of my yard that's going south. So track 10 I have set up with a certain length to only handle trailer on flat car. So all my piggyback stuff is going on track 10, but only a certain distance on this end, because I'm going to have a piggyback ramp at the end to offload. The rest of the track is just labeled as storage for anything. So that's why I labeled it 10 north, which will cover this section. 10 south will cover this section. And what I always do, because it was a rule at KCS, a car could not be left on a siding more or less than 100 feet from a frog, okay, which is approximately 13 inches in HO scale. So I always make sure when I'm measuring my track lengths that I leave 13 inches away from the frog of the switch, okay? All right. Now, another thing I wanted to show you, and I'm going to turn my camera that way, and let me check and make sure that my laptop is showing correctly, because I want to show down at the end my engine facility. And I hope you all can see down here, because my engine facility has 2 tracks, okay? It's hard for me to see what's going on the screen that far away. Maybe if I tilt my screen up a little bit. So I have 2 tracks on my engine facility, right? The engine facility is labeled as east and west. So obviously if that's north that way, then this is going to be west. So the west is my track that's against the wall, and the east is my track next to it. And those 2 tracks go to the engine facility. So in my list, that's how I've got them labeled as east and west. All right, let me go back around and turn the camera around. All right, so despite all that, let me zoom back out. Despite all of those things, I have still numbered my tracks. So you'll notice that as you go down, the list here, hang on. Got to get some stuff out of the way on my screen. So you'll notice that my diesel facility they're both track 12, but one's west and one's east, right? And then number 13, track 13 is my record track. So even though I'm naming certain tracks, I keep them all numbered. Now, track 11, which is the track that's against the wall, and there's a straight run on it, is going to have some industries along that wall. So what I've allotted is 125 feet for each industry, because they either have 1 or 2 loading facilities at those industries. So 125 feet gives me enough room for my longest car loading type car. All right, so my longest one would be a 62-foot boxcar. That's the longest I have. So that 125 feet gives me enough room to put 2 62-foot boxcars in there. All right. So even though track 11 is exactly the same track, I have divided it up by industry. You can see there 4 different industries at 125 feet each. So that when it generates a switch list, it tells the switcher track 11, Armstrong electric motor. So the switcher knows to go to Armstrong electric motor and drop that boxcar off or whatever. Okay. All right, so now that I've gone over that, I have input that. I also have, go back to operations, sorry. I also have put in a spur. The spur is one single track. In that one single track, I actually have 4 industries. So it's one spur, 4 tracks. American Compress, McGraw Oil, Shattuck, Feed and Grain, and then I've got an industry that I'm going to name later. I think it's going to be a lumber yard, if I'm not mistaken. I just put a name in there because I've forgotten what it was when I input it. All right. Once I did that, I put in my paper mill. I put in. I'm going to edit it. I put in all the tracks for my paper mill. You see my through tracks always have a normal pickup and drop off order, and my stub in tracks are always first in, first out. Okay, next. Now we're actually going to do some inputs. All right, so operations, locations. There's your location list. Okay, I'm going to make another location. All I do is go down to the bottom of the menu and click add. And this is going to be the cement plant. And I'm going to come back later. I'm going to probably edit it and give it a real name. I just know it's going to be a cement plant. So to make sure that that shows up in the list of locations, what we'll do is we'll click add location. And now what type of cars are going to be serving the cement plant? So what we're going to do is we're going to come here. I'm going to uncheck all of these because I don't want to, I don't want all of these cars at this location. There's no reason to have them because it's a cement plant. So what I'm going to do is click the clear all. And let me see if I can move that screen. It doesn't look like that screen will move unless I stretch it out. Stretch it out. There we go. All right. So I have clicked. I have clicked the add location, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do cement hoppers. How about that? So cement hoppers will be going into the cement plant. There's a couple other things. I'm probably going to add some box cars because it might be a place that manufactures cement and bags them. So you can get bags of cement, and those are obviously loaded on box cars. So we're gonna check box car. I don't think anything else. Oh, I take that back. I am going to do a gondola. Okay, so a lot of times lime is brought in on gondolas, and lime is used in the manufacture of cement. So I'm going to make sure that we can have gondolas show up at that location as well. And somebody may correct me. I do not believe that there's any tank car type liquid chemicals used in the manufacture of cement. However, I am going to add another dimension to the cement plant, and that's going to be asphalt. Okay, so that definitely would need tank cars. So I'm going to come in here. This is just to let you know, the list of cars in here is definitely not complete. Okay, so right now I'm just going to do tank oil, but later on I am going to add a car type that's chemical tank. Okay, so that chemical tank will be dropping off cars at the cement plant. All right, but I don't want to do that now because we're not up to that. We're not up to that part of the program yet. So just know that we're going to go back in later when I show you how to add rolling stock. Um, I'll show you how to add different car types when we add rolling stock into the program. So at this point, we're not going to do that. So what I've done is I've selected whatever cars I want to go into that cement plant, and I have 2 tracks in my cement plant. Okay, so I will be adding those, and these are both spur tracks. So now, if you'll notice, my spur, not only for the cement plant, but for my oil refinery that I'm going to be doing down here, and let me just move the camera. So this is the beginning of the track that goes into the cement plant right here. It comes off of a siding. Okay, the siding also serves for the oil refinery tracks as well. I'm not going to put my siding into JMRI, and that's because I don't want it to be used as any type of storage. Now I could put it in there and put the length of the track is 0, so JMRI knows not to store any cars there. I could do that. I just don't really see the necessity for it for this particular siding. I did that over in the paper mill because there's a track I use over in the paper mill. I have a pickup and a set out track over at the paper mill, but I also have a third track that's used for switching. And I did include that in JMRI, but the fact that this isn't in the middle of a classification yard or a marshaling yard means that there's just really no reason to add it, because there's going to be no storage whatsoever on this track. This is a siding simply to switch into the cement plant and also switch into the oil refinery. Okay, so both the tracks that go into the cement plant are actually spur tracks. So what I am going to do in this location for my cement plant, I'm going to leave it as spur, and I'm going to click add spur track. So the name of this track, I'm going to go back to my paper mill because that's the last one I did, and see what the last track number I used. And the last track number I used was 22. Okay. So this is going to be track 23. All right. So what I'm going to do now for track 23 is I'm going to have to measure it and that tells the program how many cars I can have on that track, because when you input your cars, you're going to input the length of each car. All right. So let's look down here. Here's the track length. Now remember, when I measure track, I leave 13 inches from the frog. And that 13 inches will allow me enough room to store cars without the concern of cars running into each other that when I put them on the other track. So I measure from the frog, and this track particularly curves. So what I'm going to do is measure up to the curve, which is about 2 feet. Okay, so 24 inches to the curve. And you don't have to be exact, but get close as you can. And that's 50 inches. So a total of 74 inches for this track. So what I'm going to do is subtract my 13 inches that I would from my frog. So 74 minus 13, of course, 61. So when I put that in to JMRI, you can see I'm putting 61 inches, and I use the double quotation mark for inches, which is standard. So the 61 inches will be converted when I save the track into what the scale feet are for HO scale. All right, so I'm going to click Add Spur Track. So do I want it served by all four of those tank cars, hopper, cement hopper, gondola, boxcar? Yes, I want that spur track to accept all four types of those cars. So I'm just going to leave them all checked. Any trains, any routes, north, south. All right, so I've done that. I am going to click, and we can get into doing schedules and all later on. That's definitely way beyond where we are now. So I'm just going to click Save Spur Track. So you'll notice in my cement plant, I now have a spur track with length of 442 inches, or 442 scale feet. All right, so there's a second track here. So I'm going to click the add again, and this is going to be track 24. And now it wants the length. So I'm going to measure from the frog. If I can get all my junk out of the way. From the frog. This is 63 inches. Okay, so minus my 13, that gives me 50 inches. So I'm going to put the length in as 50. If you don't put the double quotation mark in, it'll think it's 50 scale feet. So always put that double quotation mark. This way you don't have to go and measure and then, then multiply it by 87.1 yourself to figure out what the scale length is. All right, so 50 inches, and I'm going to click Add, and I do want it to be served by with all these types of rolling stock that I decided. Okay, save, and then close. So now you can see that I have added my 2 spur tracks at my cement plant. So I put my location, decided what cars I want to go there, added my 2 tracks. First one's converted to 442 scale feet, and then 362 scale feet for the second one. So that is how you add tracks into JMRI. Real easy. You add a location first and then a track. So you determine at your location, is it a spur, is it a yard, is it an interchange track, or is it for staging only? Okay. And once you do that, determine what type of track at this location, then you start adding. In this case, it was adding spur tracks. Okay, and I believe by default, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe by default, the program, when you're adding a spur, does first in, first out. I will have to go look up that particular thing to tell you for sure. Okay, so that's all there is to adding in locations. If you do this program, and let me turn this around. If you do this program one step at a time, you're not going to get as confused, and you're not going to be as concerned, am I doing it right? Because one step at a time, just take it one step at a time, go to operations, just like we're doing in the tutorials. Do the settings first. Then come back, go get yourself a glass of iced tea or a Dr. Pepper or something, and then come back and do the locations. And then now for tomorrow, what I'll do is we will cover adding cars, your rolling stock into JMRI. So this will be all of your all of your rolling stock, whether it's revenue or non-revenue type cars. Okay, and then you add your locomotives, then your routes, and then you set up your trains. So it'll be easy if you just do it one step at a time. And once again, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. And let me make two other comments. Visit my Teespring store. I just spent a lot of money on eBay and I got to make it up somehow. So go and purchase a t-shirt or a sticker or a mug or a tote bag. But seriously, make sure Tuesday evening you watch Dave Thurber at the Crooked River in Eastern for On Track Tuesday. And we will see everyone later.